A gunman attempts to murder America's most controversial talk show host, and a New York Times reporter is on the hunt for answers. That's the storyline of the talk show, a fast-paced, witty thriller with twists and turns to keep you on edge. Joining me now is author Joe Wenke. Welcome to Connecticut Style, Joe.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
All right, so I know you've been writing this book, or at least had the idea for this book, for almost 20 years.
Even longer than that, actually. A million years ago, when I was a student at Notre Dame, I just had this idea. I wanted to write a book called The Talk Show. And that was the days of like Johnny Carson and Dick Cavett. And I loved all of that. And even the daytime talk shows of Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas, which was based in Philly. That's where I'm from. But I had this idea, too, that, you know, maybe talk on TV isn't always communication, and maybe it could actually be frustrating from the standpoint of a talk show host, where they're famous and they're on TV all the time, but it sort of feels like they're not really communicating. So that was just the beginning of the idea for the book many years ago.
All right, so give us the storyline without revealing too much.
Yeah, sure. Well, the book is a very fast read, first of all, because I know people are into short-form communication. They're texting all the time.
No one has patience for anything, right?
Nobody has patience. So, like, every sentence is like a little explosion on your brain, and it's fast, and it's funny, and it's dark. And, like, if you like the dialogue in Quentin Tarantino movies, you'll like the book. Okay. So, in terms of the two main characters, you mentioned them. Jack Winthrop is a Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the New York Times, and Abraham Lincoln Jones is America's most controversial TV talk show host. He's black, he's gay, and he's kind of the anti-Oprah. He's very flamboyant. He has kind of a James Brown stage presence, and he's sort of simultaneously hated and loved by everybody. Okay. So late one night, after having more than a few Johnny Walker blues, he calls up Jack Winthrop, and the two have never met, but he knows of Winthrop, of course, and he feels that he may be a kindred spirit, and he sort of unburdens himself, and he says that he's very frustrated with TV. And what he'd like to do is embark on a national tour. He calls it an emancipation tour. Okay. Across the country, performing in front of huge crowds so he can communicate directly with the American people. And Winthrop's kind of skeptical and reticent, but he decides to go along and become his communications guru. And that sets off the action of the novel, where the two end up in the crosshairs of a psychopathic racist killer.
Interesting. Yes. Wow, and there's really some unique characters also in the book.
Yeah, well, Winthrop's a New York Times columnist, but he sort of has a second life, and he likes to hang out at an East Side strip club called the Tit for Tat. And at this club, there are really amazing radical characters, but they're also very humane and funny. One of the characters is Father Rita Harvey. She's a transgender ex-Catholic priest, and she's sort of the persona of innocence and vulnerability, but she's a survivor at the same time. So it's about a lot of interesting characters, a lot of fast action, but it really tries to capture what it's like to be alive today in America, living in New York City.
And is that what you want people to take away from it, like the lesson behind it?
Well, I wanted to do what writers back in the day when the novel was considered to be important do, which is sort of sum up what experience is like today. And there's something new that I think a lot of us are feeling that's very uncomfortable, that really lends itself to a thriller, and that is, I think a lot of us walk around with a feeling that something bad is going to happen, and it can happen anywhere and any time. And I think this is kind of new in the last 15 or 20 years.
Sure,
and it's
our
sort of
society that we're living in, right?
So it's born of terror, it's born of school shootings, and it repeats itself over and over again, and people begin to walk around with a sense of fear, a sense of dread, a sense of paranoia. But what the novel says is, okay, here are two guys who get their share of hate mail, they're famous, but when it comes down to being them, that somebody is actually pursuing them, then it becomes personal, then it becomes real.
Got it.
So that's what it's about.
And can we expect a sequel from you?
Yeah, well, I wrote it with the idea, if it's, you know, buy the book and I'll write more than one sequel. But yeah, it's one of the themes is there's always another gunman. So in addition to the primary gunman, there's this other shadowy figure who's kind of frustrated. Actually, the shooting takes place. He's ready to take a shot and somebody preempts him. So he goes away, but he's going to come back another day.
There's another whole story right there.
There's another book. So I was very sneaky about that.
Joe, where can we find your book?
It's everywhere. Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks. It's all over the place. Buy it.
Pretty easy. The name of the book again is The Talk Show. Joe, we appreciate you being here and sharing the story.
Thanks so much. A lot of fun.
All right.